Hey Denise, just wanted to shoot you a video um, regarding your questions about divisions and federations and all that. So there are lots of options when it comes to competing in physique sport. Um, the first question you have to ask yourself if you're wanting to compete against or compete in drug tested or non-drug tested organizations. So that fundamentally will um, kind of dictate where a person gravitates towards. It's not to say you have to do one or the other, unless you are not drug free. In that case, then there's only certain federations that don't drug test. So I guess one could still potentially compete in drug tested competitions, but there's the issue of ethics behind that decision. So I'll kind of outline the federations of which I know, at least that are to my knowledge, that exist here. So I'll start with drug tested since that's what I'm most familiar with. There's kind of a hierarchy in terms of natural bodybuilding, with there being some organizations that are more reputable and known to have the higher standards than others. So starting from the top down, top of the top is the INBF, WNBF. Most natural bodybuilders wouldn't argue with you that it's the most competitive federation, at least on a global scale. There are, most federations claim to be around the world, but when they have WNBF Worlds each year, both the amateur and the professional divisions are usually very, very stacked. And I'm talking people from Spain, Portugal, Africa, most of the continents are represented. So really broad spectrum, and you'll have, I would say, anywhere from 15 to 20 people per division. So let's say lightweight men's bodybuilding. So there's bantam, lightweight, middleweight, heavyweight, typically. Just in the bantam or the lightweight class alone at Worlds, there were 15 competitors. So you put 15 to 20 competitors in each weight class. There were 60, 70 bodybuilders, professional bodybuilders from across the globe, just in men's bodybuilding alone. So the WNBF has the highest standards. It's the hardest pro card to attain. For most divisions, there have to be 8 people at an amateur show, and you have to win the overall in order to qualify for a pro card. So each organization is a little different, but that's the most in natural bodybuilding. Beneath that would probably be a two-way tie from like next prestigious. There's the IPE and the OCB. These are the professional versions. OCB is there's no other acronyms for the amateur version. It's OCB amateur and then OCB pro. But the IPE, the amateur, is the NANBF. So that would be kind of a two-way tie for next rung on the ladder. With the argument there being, so each federation has its kind of national championship or world championship or whatnot. So the OCB's is the Yorton Cup, which is probably a bit more prestigious than the IPE. It's called the World Championship. It tends to be more competitive. It has a longer standing history. But outside of the major championships, the shows and the level of competitiveness tends to be about the same. Below that would be the INBA, PNBA, so amateur, professional. International Natural Bodybuilding Association. My first show ever was in that organization. I did Classic Physique and placed second. I actually won a pro card. I just never did anything with it. I let it lapse. Again, there's some subjectivity as to like where people would rank these. I'm ranking it, third rung down on the ladder. There are others who might rank it second or even first. It just depends on who you talk to. It does have a long history. It's some really great champions of natural bodybuilding have come out of that organization historically. They offer pretty good cash prizes to professionals, and it is international. They have shows all across the globe annually. So definitely some merit to that organization. Some of my bodybuilding hero of all time is a guy named Philip Ricardo Jr., and he's like the 7-time Mr. Olympia. So their natural championship is called the Natural Olympia, and it's every year in Las Vegas, and it's a big show, a big spectacle. Again, so there's subjectivity as to like where you put it as far as which one's the best. And then there aren't really many arguments, when it comes to the organizations below that. So you've got the NGA, and I'm not even entirely sure what that stands for. Most high-level natural bodybuilders don't compete there anymore. There's the DFAC, DFAC. Not super popular in the States, pretty popular in the UK, I believe. Then you have some really small ones like the NFF, NPF, that I typically don't put people in those shows, just because if you're going to compete, you might as well do it on a big enough stage, unless it's simply just to get on stage and it's going to be local and really convenient for a person. I avoid putting people in those shows. And that pretty much covers natural bodybuilding. Within that, you have women's in the female divisions. There's some version of these in each organization. They may call them different things, but you basically have bikini as the smaller, less muscled females on stage. Next up would be women's figure. These would be women with a bit more muscularity, a bit more conditioning, meaning a little less body fat, and the idea of taper from top to bottom becomes more critical. After that, you'd have women's physique, another notch up of muscularity. The poses are a little bit more similar to like traditional bodybuilding poses. The WNBF calls theirs fit body, but it's essentially women's physique. And then above that, you have women's bodybuilding. There aren't a whole lot of women's bodybuilding, and not every organization even has it anymore. But this is it's I don't want to call it a joke division nowadays, but it's not very popular. Not many people do it. For what it's worth, the first 3 levels, so bikini, figure, women's physique, it goes in that order of popularity. So bikini is very popular. Everyone and their mom does bikini. Figure would be next up, and that's probably where I think you'd fit the best. And then there's women's physique, which I think you could do. It'll just be, we'll just know more once we diet down which one fits your physique better, but it'll also depend on what fits your personality best. Figure is a great place because I know you have enough muscularity for that. and you have the potential to achieve really high levels of conditioning, so low level of body fat, especially in the upper body, which will look really impressive. Your back will look really impressive. So that's the divisions, and those divisions exist in untested bodybuilding as well. The list of federations for untested, undrug tested bodybuilding is pretty low. The biggest one, of course, is the NPC, National Physique Committee. I think that's what it is. That's the amateur division of the IFBB. Most competitive. Drug use comes part and parcel with the sport in that federation. Again, it's not to say that someone who is not on drugs can't compete there. The likelihood of being successful, though, is much, much lower because it's just not going to be a level playing field. It's basically taking a knife to a gunfight. There are some exceptions. Males, kind of like myself, there's a division called Classic Physique that's dictated by height and weight. So males who are natural but have a high levels of muscularity and fit within those height weight requirements can actually potentially do fairly well as a natural. So I'm trying my hand at an NPC show this summer here locally, mostly because it's 20 minutes, 15 minutes away. So just want to do it and see how I stack up with guys that I know potentially could be on drugs. So yeah, so outside of the the NPC IFBB, there's the WBFF. It's a real pageanty type of competition. I would not recommend it unless, from what I know of you, I don't think it's down your alley, but it's something to look up if you wanted to. The WBFF, they do like wings and gowns and shit. I don't know. I'm not real familiar with it. And like I said, the divisions all exist more or less to the same degree in the NPC IFBB as in the natural organizations. Just you can add more muscularity and higher levels of conditioning, so meaning lower levels of body fat, depending on the division. Yeah, I hope that gives you a clearer understanding. My suggestion would be to just start looking around, and just kind of seeing what kind of poses pique your interest, what physiques pique your interest, what fits your personality type, and then we will know what you might be most competitive in, like I said, further down the line. There is not necessarily a compromise, it just depends on a person's personality and interest, but there can be a compromise that needs to happen, because there may be a division where the person might fit better, but their desire and their personality goes in another one. So I'm inclined to give the client my recommendation as to where they might fit the best or place the best, but then we're going to take into consideration what they want to do, what poses they really like, because at the end of the day, success is great, winning a show is great, but if you don't enjoy that division or those poses or those suits or whatever, not sure if it's worth it. So that is it. That's my almost 15 minute video on the divisions in physique sport, both tested and untested. And if you have any other questions, just let me know.